Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's Virtual Non-Deal Roadshow. My name is Julia Perron, a virtual event moderator here at Renmark Financial Communications. On behalf of our team, we'd like to thank everyone in Toronto and surrounding areas for joining us today for the presentation of Volta Metals Limited, trading on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the ticker symbol VLTA, and on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol VOLMF. Presenting today is Kerem Usenmez, President and Chief Executive Officer, alongside Steve Stakiw, Strategic Advisor of Capital Markets. With that being said, I will now hand it over to Kerem and Steve.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. My name is Kerem. I am the CEO of Volta Metals. I'm a geological engineer. I worked with juniors as well as majors in producing mines, ran a drilling company, and so forth. I sit on the board of the PDAC. So we're very involved in the industry, and I'm joined here by Steve, our advisor for capital markets and strategic business advisory. So we're going to explain you what Volta is, what our main project is about. So Volta Metals is an Ontario-focused critical mineral exploration and development company with our flagship project, Springer, near Sudbury, Ontario. We'll tell you what this is all about, but it is one of the largest rare earth deposits that's still growing with an unmatched infrastructure that is near Sudbury. And I'll show you as we go what I'm referring to. So cautionary statements, everybody reads those, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But there will be some forward-looking statements as we go through this presentation. This presentation is also on our website. So just mentioned a little bit, high-grade rare earth deposit with gallium add-on that we're going to talk about that as we go. That is still growing. Why is it important? Because as we all know, East and West are separating, and now China has monopolized almost these critical, not only critical, but strategic elements that Western world desperately needs. And now we're trying to build that supply chain out in West, in North America. Having something like this is crucial. Almost you have to have it. And that's where Volta comes in. It's now, and we are advancing this very, very rapidly. And to answer that question, to help out with the Western supply chain as much as we can at this point. So before we dive into, I wanted to mention what the rare earths are and what are they used for. So the rare earth elements, there's 17 of them in the periodic table. They usually, used together, mostly in robotics and more in these days, AI, electric vehicles, all the green energy, but also regular vehicles too. Your radio, your adjustable seats, and so forth are using that. But on the national security and defense, as well as communications, it's being used more and more that we don't have. So those elements we desperately need for all these reasons. These premium magnets making those possible. Precision rockets, electric vehicles that they don't have rotating. It's all about rare earth elements and the screens that is making this podcast or this webinar available is all because of rare earths. So they are divided into two, light and heavies. But the top four here are the most important and most desired ones that are used in all these industries. So NdPr, neodymium and praseodymium, terbium and dysprosium. Dysprosium, these are the heavies. We don't have these ones in North America, like none of those. So there's only MP Material, that's the producing mine, Mountain Pass. They're producing these two. But the good thing is all of these, we have it at Springer, which is near Sudbury. So this also shows the supply-demand differences and what is projected. Mind you, these graphs were pre-Middle East war. So now it's getting even more important, but the takeaway here is probably the current status, which is the right graph. This is showing what US is buying from China currently. And look what is at the top, rare earth elements. Desperately need that supply, desperately need those raw materials going to production in North America at this point. So that's where we come in. Obviously, we're not in production, but what we're finding and what we're expanding is remarkable. This is Springer Rare Earth Deposit in Ontario. Where is it located? This is Sudbury. For the ones who don't know, I'm assuming everybody knows, being in Ontario. It's 3.5 hours from Toronto by separated highway into Sudbury, one of the world's largest mining cities in the world. And from there, you take the Trans-Canada Highway right into Sturgeon Falls. This road goes to North Bay, which is 30 kilometers from our deposit, and we're just north of it. So this is the Trans-Canada Highway that's going through. And this road, oh, sorry, I don't have the pointer. Just give me a sec. So this is the road that's going, this is the Trans-Canada Highway between North Bay and Sudbury. So Sudbury is right here. And this road, Highway 64, goes through our claims. As you see here, the blue line or the filled areas are our claims. And this is where the deposit is. This line that you're seeing here comes from Crystal Falls Dam, literally just outside of our claims. That's the power line going through basically the deposit. As you can see here on the right-hand corner, these are the power lines that I'm talking about right here. And this is one of the dams, which is also, there's another dam here. So we are very close to infrastructure, not only close, but it's on site. So we have power on site, we have paved road on site, and the talent. It's in Sudbury and North Bay. You can commute to this place. In fact, our senior technical staff, they live in Sudbury. So they just go back and forth, so it's pretty easy that way. So being in Ontario, obviously with the Ontario's support is crucial. But one of the first things we did as soon as we acquired this last June, just about 12 months now, next week it's going to be 12 months exactly, we built a relationship with the First Nations, which is Nipissing First Nation. They welcomed us so well, and we built that relationship and signed an MOU that will carry us through production. So we have a very good relationship. They're very supportive. One of the things we also did is you can order pizza from Sturgeon Falls onto the site. We're within the pizza delivery zone. Hey, Steve, we just to demonstrate how easily accessible this project is. So it is within the pizza delivery zone.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning while we're on this as well, is just, I can't understate how important the proximity to infrastructure is. In my career over almost 30 years, including taking projects through to production, I've never seen a project with the abundance of infrastructure that Springer has. I think it is incredibly important. Why? Ultimately, as you move the project down a development pathway, it shortens timelines, reduces capital expenditures, and really just it expedites your path to get to production. And that's where we see Springer moving forward. I think, getting there, I think it's, first across the line is going to be very important in the critical metals, especially in North America. And I think Springer is compared to many of our peers, or compared to all of our peers in North America, I don't see any others that have the abundance of infrastructure that Springer has going forward. That alone, sets Springer out on top of the resource that we have there as well.
Yeah, very good points. Yeah, thank you. And it's not only reduces the timeline because you have to build those infrastructure, like you might not know, but the power lines take the most of time, partly because you also need additional permits for all of these, the roads, and then you have to build them, the capital infrastructure needed for infrastructure. We don't need any of those. We just need to advance as quickly.
That's a good point. Like permitting, permitting is an important component. And if you're in an area that doesn't have this infrastructure, you could be looking at, years of permitting hoops to jump through, and, tens to hundreds of millions of dollars of additional CapEx. These are items that Springer won't require. We have all of that in place, as Kerem has outlined. Proximity to power lines running through the property area, rail, highway, workforce, everything. It checks all the boxes to move a project from exploration through to development onto a production pathway.
I don't think there's any other rare earth project, let alone the other ones, but rare earth project that exists with this kind of infrastructure. Like, we don't have to build a camp.
Nothing I've seen. Yeah, no, nothing out there that I can identify. So no, I think that's where Springer really shines.
So what does it look like? So what happened was, when we acquired this asset, there was drilling and initial resource done back in 2012. After that, no work was done until we acquired it last June. As soon as we acquired it, we drilled, because all the boreholes that they drilled were left in mineralization, indicating that this is bigger. Might have been just 1 meter longer, but we just wanted to test that. So we drilled more than we anticipated, and all those boreholes again were left in mineralization and so forth. But with that drilling, we updated the resource. Now it is the 7th largest, top 10 North American rare earth mineralization that is starting on surface, and it is still open. With that, we drilled, I'll get to that. But what is very exciting about being not only larger is this red zone that's on surface, which is high grade core. That's about almost 15 million tons. Our estimation is, if we are going for 4,000 tons per day production, this is about 11-year mine life alone. Just the high-grade core, almost in the middle, right on surface. So with that, we went ahead and drilled, and then those results are coming. We announced the first borehole this morning. There is 12 more boreholes to come. A lot of exciting stuff is happening. When we were going through the due diligence, we did thorough due diligence. That's why it took a little longer than your usual acquisition for a size like this. But we wanted to understand the mineralogy. We wanted to understand the radioactivity. We wanted to understand the met work. Can you actually liberate those? Those work was done. While we were doing that, I was going through the drill hole data. We realized that half of the boreholes back in 2010-11 that were drilled hit high-grade gallium. I'm talking very high grade, and wide zones consistently, not 1 or 2 boreholes, consistently. So we're like, is this real? So we started doing all the work. The met work, basically, before acquiring, came back with very positive liberation. We said, okay, this can be liberated. Obviously, metallurgical work is a marathon. So we did some work. I'll get to that as well. But what happened is, we realized there's no radioactivity as well. So 0 uranium, negligible levels of thorium, but the gallium add-on, we were also very excited about. So what is happening is, since then, we've drilled, obviously, and those drill holes keep coming back with really high grade. Just to give context, gallium has always been produced as a byproduct of aluminum and sometimes zinc, depending on the mineralization. But the bauxite, the highest grade aluminum mineral, bauxite, comes with 50 to 54 grams per ton gallium. And look at our numbers. 100 grams of gallium, 87 meters. 81 grams, 130. It's consistently high grade. And today, we have 68, 69 grams per ton, over 688 meters of gallium. This is, to me, it's remarkable. So not only that, of course, that's the gallium. Gallium is just not even an icing, it's a sprinkler on a cake. The cake here is the rare earth elements that we have. The lights and the heavies starting on surface, ever growing. We now drilled outside of this 688 meters. Mind you, it's inclined, so it's not vertical. So we have more mineralization around this high grade. So this is getting more exciting. No uranium, no radioactivity, and mineralization on surface with unmatched infrastructure. So
yeah, I think some of the important points there, Kerem, like you've touched on, is the latest drilling that we put out this morning is kind of showcases the continuity of the mineralization in Springer. 688 meters of very good grade total rare earth oxides, plus extremely high grade gallium oxide as well. I think really exemplifies the continuous mineralization in the Springer deposit. It's not little pods of mineralization. This is an extremely large carbonatite complex that's showing consistent mineralization throughout all of it. the results from this drilling as well are really exciting in that they will be contributing towards our preliminary economic assessment study coming up later this year. And given the fact that we've drilled outside of the resource shell and the open pit shell that we currently have, it just shows the expansion potential. And that's basically on top of the mineral resource increase that we've taken up, we've shown at Springer to date. Certainly the indications are that the mineralization is not closed off. It could get bigger. It could get a lot bigger. So that's what really excites us going forward. Not only having a high-grade core, which ideally could form a nice starter pit scenario, but the extensive mineralization that's open on strike and at depth. I think we've only just touched on the potential of Springer.
Yeah, very good points. And when we touched it, when I want to point out one of the things is the green one is our total resource here. So when the engineers put together the pit design, this is obviously preliminary resource. PA will define that a little bit more in detail. Basically, the very low strip ratio, you want to be around 3, under 3. We're like half of that, which meaning almost everything that you excavate for the pit has value, has mineralization. And now we're going beyond that, so it might be even better. It's just really getting better and better as we go. So the comparables, we touched on that. It's one of the top 10. When we acquired, we weren't even on this chart. Now that's where we are. We're the only ones that's open for expansion, which this current drilling will feed into the new update. That's going to be part of the PEA that we're going to working on. I'll touch on what's coming next, but this is ever growing with an unmatched infrastructure, any of those. So that's where I think the upside value for this project is for not only Canada, but for North America in general. So now the metallurgy. So metallurgy is, to me, one of the most important aspects of any rare earth project. That's why we've been doing extensive work with multiple labs on a different angle. So like I said, before we acquired this, we did initial deliberation, which was very positive. Feeding that with the current drilling and everything else, we started doing recovery work. Can we actually recover? If we recover, how much of it? That is going to determine the economics of this project. Obviously, given the infrastructure we have, the capital requirements as well as operational expenditures are going to be less, but obviously we want to make more money as possible. So where are we? You always want to be over 40%. 60 is very good for the recoveries, or 65 for this type of mineralization, carbonatites. We have initial results, 88% recovery on the rare earths. But what's more to me exciting is the enrichment. What is enrichment? Is what you feed in. You put 2%, it comes back with whatever. In this case, it's almost 27%, 13 times enrichment without even trying, because we were just trying to understand, can we recover with this initial tests? The next stage is optimize this enrichment. But we are already starting with a high, because you always want to be around 5 to 10. But we're already starting on a first step of very high. So that exceeds the assumptions based on the 2012 initial work that was done. This was like almost half of this number that fed the resource estimate numbers. So the PEA, which is going to be more detailed, is going to start with this, and we're hoping to do more work, and we'll have better results going forward. So in potential. Apart from this, we also have an agreement with Idaho National Laboratory in the US. They are the biggest laboratory for nuclear and these type of rare earth elements. So that basically they have buckets of our samples. They're going through the recovery work as well as some other mineralogy work. So we'll have results hopefully soon on that. Apart from that, on the gallium, we're doing gallium recovery work as well as we speak, but we have some work being done in Laurentian University in Sudbury, which is 50 minutes from our deposit. They're experts in bioleaching. Their work is being utilized in Chile for copper extraction. So that is working very well. You see some of the all the rare earth, some of the work that was done, which is the input is in the background in red. Our rocks look mostly reddish, so you can see it in there. But here we have all the rare earths and gallium recovered in solution here with bacteria. So that work is ongoing. It's a very slow process. It's going to take long, but initial results are encouraging. This is SGS laboratory that we did the initial work in Lakefield, one of the biggest in North America. So we're very encouraged with the initial results. We answered the question that was most concerning for this project. Can you actually recover from these rocks? Can you get these elements out? And the answer is strong yes. With this 88%, it's better than expected.
Yeah, the metallurgy is really, it's one of your major de-risks in a project, because as Kerem touched on, if you can't get the metals out of the rock, well, it really doesn't matter. And these results show that, we're delivering extremely good recovery numbers in the initial flotation testing. And subsequent and follow-up metallurgy is going to look at continuing to refine that. You never stop tweaking and working on your metallurgy. You want to maximize your recoveries, and we're going to continue that program going forward. So this is a major de-risk, and that's exciting in terms of having the project de-risked, because ultimately that's where you start to see more advanced potential discussions with strategic partners going forward. So we see this as a huge milestone and catalyst for Volta and the Springer deposit going forward, and we're going to continue on that path.
So yeah, exactly. This validates those numbers we are coming out with drilling are actually real. We can recover with these massive intercepts of high grade. It's going to become real. So with these type of deposits, you need a strong team to move it forward into development and production. That's why we recently increased our technical expertise locally. So we added Philip and Julie as our vice presidents of projects and exploration. They both are in Sudbury. They've been very successful. So apart from me, I'm a geological engineer that built production projects across Canada as well as South America. Philip brings a more pinpoint expertise that we need to take this project into production. He's done this many times, and most recently in Sudbury area. So he's very familiar with Ontario regulations, the suppliers, what needs to be done. So we're moving forward in a very efficient way, because we can see the next step, maybe the next 5 steps that we need to accomplish before we get to that point. So he's very, very good with that, and working hard to do that. So Julie has PhD in these and lithium. She has many papers established. So she's looking into more details on how we can, basically the exploration efforts, the testament to her and the whole team, that the results are being fruitful based on her work as well. So we have advisors also coming on. Well, they've been working with us. Fred Breaks, obviously, very, very crucial for this. Fred and Julie worked actually 10 years, and while Fred was running the treasure hunt for Ontario Geological Survey, he did that for 29 years, and his role was to identify Ontario's potential for rare earths and lithium. So what better person? We did his PhD and wrote papers and whatnot. Alistair brings in metallurgical expertise for rare earths. That's all he did over 35 years of his career. Built China's or Asia's first couple of refineries, and he knows what to look for. And yours truly, Steve, is here with me. Built, obviously, companies and projects from exploration stage to multi-billion-dollar producing mines.
I'll touch on the board. So I came on as a strategic advisor later last year. I'm pretty excited to be joining the team. I've worked with a number of the board members in the past, specifically the chair, Dr. Mark Cruz, and director Mike Hoffman. The three of us were some of the initial people involved with a company called Trevally Mining. We took that company from a shell and ultimately grew that into 4 operating zinc mines, a global top 10 zinc producer, 4 mines on 3 continents, a few thousand employees, and over $1 billion market cap. So really the depth of the team speaks loudly. We've taken projects all the way through to production. So I think it's demonstrating that Volta has the bandwidth to continue to advance Springer going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody brings something valuable to the company. It's since inception. So yeah, the capital structure. So when we went public as with a shell. So at that time, insiders own about 5%. Since then, we've been increasing our holdings by participating in every financing to date. Initially, when we started the company as a private company, it was done at 10 cents. No cheap paper, no free paper to anybody, and we went public at 10 cents as well. So since then, we've been increasing. Currently, we have 131 million shares outstanding with a very healthy cash and super low burn rate. We've done everything to this date by $6 million or under. Inception, acquiring all the lithium assets. We did exploration, drilling, acquired this asset, drilled twice, metallurgical work, all the environmental work we are doing, and the resource update. It's all under 6 now. Obviously, we're getting into more advanced studies and whatnot. So we will keep delivering. I think this project is too good to not move fast, and that's what we're trying to do at this point.
Just to touch on this really quickly, just talking about some of our peer group comparatives in the rare earth space, certainly where Volta currently sits, compared to a number of the companies that are out there, as I touched on, I would argue that none of them come close to the infrastructure that we have, and the project size. Certainly, we've demonstrated that this is a big system, about over 170 million tons of total rare earth oxide mineralization. We continue to see that expand with the latest drilling, so we're excited to continue to move that forward and see that grow going forward. And really, what this slide indicates is the re-rating potential that Volta has versus our peers. So as we continue to work and deliver and execute on our exploration program, we're de-risking the project, and we certainly hope to be able to demonstrate higher valuation going forward. So I would say just watch this space. Certainly, we see that opportunity going forward.
Yeah, so this is what we've done this year so far. I promise I didn't adjust the bars that we accomplished to this date. We've been mostly on schedule. Obviously, there's been some delays on the results of drilling because of things we can't control, such as labs. They're very, very backed, worse than we anticipated. Where we are at right now is we are just starting to receive and release the drilling results from the latest drilling, the biggest ever, this project, deepest ever, and outside of the resource that has been done. So those results are coming. We announced the first one today. On parallel to that, we are doing metallurgical phase 2, which is, like Steve mentioned, optimizing the grades as we move forward. It's pretty straightforward. We just have to, do the work. So those results should come by the end of summer, hopefully, if things are on schedule with the labs, give or take September, October. Those are all going to feed into the PEA, the pre-economic assessment that we are planning to start very soon. So that should be delivered before the year end, say November. So that's our idea. Again, we're moving this very, very fast. We acquired this 12 months ago, 2 drill programs, met work, and all that. So a lot of good stuff coming within this year alone. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm assuming there will be questions because there's so much to talk about. But yeah, I'll wrap it up and see where we're at with the more clarifications or questions, if there's any.
Thank you, Kerem and Steve, for your presentation. We will now start the Q&A. Your first question for today, a viewer asks, what is the most realistic separation/processing pathway for Springer material given the limited rare earth separation capacity in North America?
I'm assuming they're asking for the downstream. So look, we don't know at this point yet. The short answer is we know flotation works. So the flotation for the recoveries work. We're going to, at the end of the day, company like us is going to generate a concentrate. We're going to sell that most likely to a processing facility. Now, there is no processing facility existing. It doesn't exist in North America currently. However, because of US's floor pricing policy, meaning they're going to subsidize if China tries to manipulate the prices, they're going to subsidize it. That took away China's power. That gave confidence to entrepreneurs in the US to build processing facilities. There's so many companies that are trying to build various variety of processing, let's call them refineries, that they're building. There's some of them are small, some of them larger, and so forth. So we are looking at that as we speak, as we go forward. We need to understand a little bit more on what our product is going to look like. Look, there's 15 of the rare earths we have. So we need to see what grades we have, because every processor is going to process differently. Some are processing neodymium, praseodymium. Some are going to produce this and that. So we need to understand a little bit more. However, we're looking at that. We're talking early stages, and let's see where things go. So the short answer is we don't know yet, but it's something that we're working on.
How are relations with the First Nations?
Yeah, I touched on that a little bit. It's been super good in a way that, because we called them the day we acquired this without doing any work, we built that relationship. They're very, very supportive. We just recently, last month, or I guess in late April, we did a community session as well on the broader community. So we got together, talking, asking questions. It was very positive. So at large, the whole community supports. There's some excitement, in fact, about this project. So that's very good. It's a very respectful, collaborative, and supportive relationship.
I think the First Nations see a lot of opportunity, certainly moving forward, and they're familiar with the resource sector. They own and operate one of the hydroelectric generating stations that's in the area that provides power that goes through our claim block as well. So very, very strong relationship, and that's paramount for any mining project, not just in Canada but globally.
Did hole SL26-35 end in mineralization?
That's a good question. Look, this is like a porphyry system. There's always mineralization. I think it's very low grade. We can call it relatively. It did not. I can answer that in that way. I think we're at the edge of it. There is still mineralization, but not high grade.
What needs to happen before gallium can be incorporated into the resource model?
There's two things. I'm just going to back up a little. When we realized there's gallium, I was surprised that wasn't included in the 2012, the original resource that was small. I looked into that. I asked the previous owners because nobody cared. It wasn't expensive. There was no need for that. And it was a very, very small market at the time, because now the gallium is used in the new generation of semiconductors because it is faster than the silicon chips, 20 times, in fact. Now, because, and also China controls it, 99% of production, and they put export controls. You cannot get gallium out of China. So it's extremely, extremely important and strategic. Now, why wasn't it included in ours? Because we hadn't done the recovery work. If you can't recover, you cannot have it in the resource. Now, we have all the data. We are doing work. We did very limited amount of recovery work, which are still positive, but it's not conclusive. So we are doing work. I'm confident we're going to finish that work to a certain degree that it can be incorporated into the PEA. So as part of the PEA, we are going to not only have a larger, at this point I can say that because of the drilling we're doing, larger resource for rare earths, we're also going to have a gallium resource as an add-on to this project. That's the goal. So short answer is recovery work, metallurgical work.
What is the industry benchmark, TREE or TREO recoveries?
Honestly, the benchmark is both of them. So total rare earth recoveries or the oxide. There's a bit of a difference, obviously, but the raw data we have is TREE, so rare earth recoveries from the lab. So we reported both because some companies report this, some companies report that, in order to be able to compare. But I need to mention something about that is, yes, TREO or TREE grades matter, but what is in the TREO, total rare earth oxides or total rare earth elements, what is in it matters. Like I said, there's 17 elements. Some of them are 30 cents a kilo, some of them are $3,000 a kilo. And on top of that, even though some of them are, let's say, $100 per kilo, they're extremely strategic because, okay, yes, the market is bigger, but globally, but we don't have them in North America. Like here, lanthanum and cerium. We need those for all these industries like gadolinium, samarium. These are very, very strategic, not only critical, but strategic. So having those in the same deposit with clean chemistry matters. That's why I think, yes, like sometimes, can we go to this slide where we compare the companies? So you look at the TREO grades here. Look at Critical Metals Corp, 0.3%, right? Like as opposed to defense 2 point whatever percent. And what is in it? That's what matters, in my opinion. Just looking under the hood a little bit, that's why we wanted to emphasize that we do have high grade of those critical elements within the TREO. So neodymium, praseodymium, terbium, dysprosium, gadolinium, samarium. I mean, we can go on and on, but the most important ones are on our press releases.
I think ultimately there's a basket value. Whenever you look at rare earths, it's always a basket value. There's a number of different elements that fall within the rare earth spectrum. Really, it's the four main ones are the two lights, are neodymium and praseodymium, which are used in specialty magnets. You know, current market valuations they range between $100 to $150 per kilogram for each of those two metals. Then your two main heavies are terbium and dysprosium. And they have much higher value. They typically form less of a component, but their value is substantially higher. Terbium is typically $1,000 to $1,500 per kilogram, and dysprosium is around $300 to $400 a kilogram. So those typically form your main pay products in rare earth deposits. And you know, Springer shows good population of those four main rare earths. Those are the ones that you typically look at. Those are your four main recoverable metals, and that's how your project is ultimately valued economically.
When did you acquire the Springer project and the terms of the purchase agreement?
Yeah, so we acquired that last June after a lengthy due diligence process, and nobody was looking at rare earths at the time. We had a good timing because our announcement came between two of the big announcements that MP Materials did. One was about the government investment, and the other one was Apple within the next day. So after that, everybody started looking at. The reason we were interested in this was the location, the elements, the clean chemistry, and the value we could create. We knew it was going to be bigger. We knew there was gallium. So even if the market wasn't great at the time we were looking at it, we knew this was very special. Like Warren Buffett says, you know, you got to invest in the right companies, good companies with good teams that's going to eventually create the value. That's what really, we looked at it as an investment as well, which, you know, that's how you have to do it. So we did that. So when we acquired it, it was relatively cheap. So it's cash and shares. And mind you, we also have surface rights of the patent. So it goes to the landowners a little bit. So we have two more payments to the landowners. One is going in June. The other one is next June. And then we're done with that. But it's total of below $2 million.
How much of the value of the rock is rare earths versus gallium?
That changes every day. I mean, based on
I think if you look at if you look at it right now, this is primarily current our valuation and what we look at. This is primarily a rare earth deposit. You know, the studies and the engineering work and the metallurgy, et cetera, has really been focused on the rare earths. We're starting now to bring the data in on the gallium component. You know, so ultimately, you know, this, you know, if things progress as we hope, and we're optimistic that we move this towards a production path, the rare earths will be the primary product. Gallium will form, or has the potential to form, a significant byproduct credit here going forward. You know, certainly gallium is another commodity that has a high valuation in the markets, just given the tight control that China has exerted globally. Gallium typically ranges between $300 to $400 a kilogram. So the gallium that we're seeing in the Springer deposit right now definitely has the potential to form an economic benefit. We just need to do that work, and we hope to start to capture some of that later this year when we do our preliminary economic assessment.
The deck indicates low thorium content as a strategic advantage. Have potential downstream partners or government groups already shown tangible interest because of that characteristic specifically?
Not only that characteristics is because of the pathway to development is going to be very short. And given the elements we have, that's where I think the value is. Obviously, low thorium or low radioactivity, like negligible levels, because we have less than the Earth's crust average, that definitely creates value. That's part of the conversations. It's not the main point that generated some interest. I'll leave it at that. There's things I can't share yet, but obviously, as we are moving forward, advancing and de-risking this project almost weekly now at this point, there's definitely some advantages in that topic.
Those are good points. With the low, very low thorium and uranium, when you look at, when you produce a concentrate, you're upgrading, the concentration of all those metals. So the base levels of thorium and uranium are so low that even in the concentrate, it doesn't form a radioactive product that requires any special handling or treatment. And that's a huge de-risk and a huge plus for Springer.
Because you need otherwise like permit even just to move it around your mine.
Exactly.
Like it's insane.
Yeah.
So you don't want that. So we are fortunate with that.
What are your plans for Aki?
Oh yeah, that's I'm glad somebody noticed. We have also Aki. That's where we started the company. We were coming up with discoveries of lithium, cesium, and tantalum, and then we acquired the strike of that, and then we discovered some higher grade cesium, tantalum on top of the highest grade lithium as well as gallium there as well. So right now, actually, we're starting our small field program there because there's things that we need to follow up on from our last years. We might have some news in the coming weeks about that to see how things are progressing, but we're going to do some work this summer. Because again, this is very easy access project, mineralization on surface and so forth, and there's some interest in lithium, cesium, and tantalum as well. So we want to do some work and see where things go.
What catalyst could get the sector going again?
I think the sector has already started going. In my view, there's a lot of talk. My mother-in-law talks about it. I mean, it's becoming more mainstream, which is good to see because if we are serious about building this supply chain here, that's where it starts, the raw materials. And I think it's coming on. It's just people don't, I think, understand well enough. Look, there's 17 of them. Some of them you can't even pronounce. So that's where the challenge is. But like what Steve mentioned, the basket value, that's why we're trying to simplify as a sector, mentioning TREOs and the basket values and so forth. We just need to move this quickly. I think there is some government or larger company involvements in these projects to move them forward. That's, I think, one of the things that's going to move even further. Steve, do you have something to add on that?
Yeah, we've seen increased coverage in mainstream media. There's been a lot of movement by Western governments throughout North America, Europe, Australia as well, looking to detach from the basically China's control of rare earths and gallium going forward. So I think that as those governments work hard, they're working to incentivize full stream development and production of just not just ore and concentrate, but refineries and magnet production to satisfy their domestic needs, and really that's where Volta Springer project shines. It's already in the top 10, one of the top 10 deposits in North America. We think we can continue to grow that in terms of size and scale and scope going forward, and certainly those are the catalysts and milestones that we're going to be executing on over the next few months to year.
Thank you, Kerem and Steve, for all your answers today. If you did not get a chance to submit your question, feel free to reach out to the appropriate account manager here at Renmark. This concludes our presentation for today, but before we go, I will turn it back over to Kerem for final remarks.
Thanks for everyone joining. This is really, truly something special. Again, just to reiterate, Springer, one of the top 10 rare earth deposits with unmatched infrastructure near Sudbury, Ontario, and the catalysts coming are more drill hole results, pre-economic assessment, including a larger rare earth deposit and a potential for gallium resource this year. So from now on until the year end, we expect constant news flow, but this is becoming more and more special for all of North America.
Once again, this was Volta Metals Limited, trading on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the ticker symbol VLTA, and on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol VOLMF. Thank you again to everyone in Toronto and surrounding areas for joining us today. Stay tuned for other presentations in your area. Thank you and see you next time.